Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to break down the newest batch of Giannis reporting, rumors, whatever you want to call it. And then it's first quarter awards time. We're going to break down all of the awards through the first 20 games of the season and where they stand at this very early point in the process. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? This is quite literally one of the biggest stressful episodes that we do together. And here's the thing. It ultimately ends up fun. Like I truly will enjoy the conversation for the next 2 hours. I truly will. But I have spent all day stressing and moving guys here and looking at this number and that number and all my notes. And I won't get into it yet because I know we're not diving right into it. But I do think this first batch of it might actually be the hardest. And I'll explain that a little bit more later whenever we get into it. But I know we got to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo before we talk about him in other capacity with some breaking news. Not breaking, but relatively recent news.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this Giannis report. So according to Shams, the Bucks and Giannis, I guess, are going to be meeting over the course of the next month about Giannis's future. That's kind of what the report was. That's really like kind of all it felt like the report was to me, that there are meetings about his future. On top of that, it's worth noting that Giannis now has a calf strain that's going to hold him out for 2 to 4 weeks, which is,
Real quick, Sam, I thought his Achilles was gone. I obviously I was watching that game. It was against Detroit, and the way he went down just was reminiscent of a lot of Achilles injuries we've seen. I was really nervous. I was so happy when I woke up this morning and didn't have the notification.
So the only thing that stopped me from thinking that is that he didn't look. Most guys that tear their Achilles, they look behind them.
Look back like somebody kicked them. Yep.
Yeah, but he looked in front of his, like he looked at like the front of his foot. You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, this isn't bad. He's also dealt with a calf injury previously in 2024. Held him out of like a big portion of the playoffs, most of their playoff run, if memory serves. So it's an issue. The Bucks are sitting here at 10-13, and my take on the Bucks this year has always been that when they're fully healthy, I think that this team is one of the teams I would want to face least in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, because they can surround Giannis with space. They have some real defenders that they can throw out there, and Rollins, Giannis, and Turner. They are like a really interesting ideal of the weak link theory, right? Because they have guys who can shoot. They have a superstar. They have pretty good defenders. AJ Green, I think, is like a serious weapon in a playoff setting because he's actually pretty good on defense and is a monster shooter. They probably needed one more creator and maybe like a wing defender. And hopefully that guy could be, two things in one, right? But I've thought that this team, like, even though they're even though they are 10-13, like, could be dangerous. The problem for me, though, and this is what I tweeted yesterday and said, and it's that they're sitting now, I think, at 1-5, 2-5, 2-4, something like that when Giannis misses games. If it can be 2-4 and they could win 33% of their games without Giannis, great. Like that, they can actually kind of survive that. You know what I mean? It's more that they can't lose 4 straight games like they did on the recent run when Giannis was like totally out of the lineup, right? That's the bigger problem to me. If you can sit here and you can like cobble together a little run where you're not like hemorrhaging games without Giannis, you can at least like buoy yourself to where when Giannis comes back, it's doable. It's manageable. Your playoff seeding won't be screwed. You won't have to go through the play-in route, right? But if you can't in these next 2 to 4 weeks, these next like 10 games, and honestly, like this might, end up removing Giannis from awards consideration this year, this injury, because, we're already on 5 games missed for Giannis, plus this one where he didn't play many minutes. I will be interested to see what you did with Giannis. I included him in awards for now, but this might be the only time we include him all season in awards. So the point here is to me that if I was the Bucks and I was their front office, I would understand, or I understand from their perspective why they feel like we might just want to like kind of hold the tide here and hold the ship and see if we can kind of steady things. The other good news for the Bucks is that like this run in mid-December into early January, they have a pretty easy schedule coming up. Like if you look through it, their next few games are a little bit difficult, but if you go ahead and look at their schedule after those next few games, it's not catastrophic. You've got Philly, Detroit, Boston next. Then you've got Brooklyn. Toronto's obviously awesome. Minnesota's obviously awesome. But then it's Indiana, Memphis, Chicago, Charlotte, Washington, Charlotte, Sacramento until January 4th. So you might be able to pick up a little bit of time there. You can't just totally be out of it by the time Giannis comes back. That's what they have to do now. Otherwise, I worry that this kind of gears toward things maybe going a different direction.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in terms of I think this team can be dangerous. At the end of the day, they still won that game against Detroit on Wednesday night after Giannis went out, and it was on the back of their guard play. And, listen, Kevin Porter Jr. is not going to, continue to score the basketball at the efficiency he is right now. But we've talked about Ryan Rollins a lot and how good he is, how Miles Turner makes so much sense and what he's providing them defensively. I think Kuzma has settled into a decent role off the bench. Like as much as people like to go at Kuzma, I feel like he gives them what they need. So I don't think that they're a perfectly constructed team, but in the Eastern Conference, I'm not saying I would pick them even with a healthy Giannis, but most people would say going into any individual series that they have the best player in the series. And I think they have enough of the guys around him that they could compete because of the AJ Green floor spacing, the Gary Trent Jr. floor spacing, like all of that. So I still do think that this team, I would understand if the front office wanted to keep this team together. With that said, it's not like their record was incredible, even in the Giannis games, right? If I'm not mistaken, they are 9-8 in those games. So it's not like they were just crushing everybody. So I don't know. I still think it could work. They obviously went on a huge losing streak, and maybe that's where this all came from. I would want to see it play out over a bigger sample size if I was the front office. But, who knows where Giannis and his camp are at in terms of, them wanting to see that. Maybe they felt like they saw enough.
In the non-garbage time minutes, the Giannis, Rollins, Turner, Green foursome is +7 per 100 possessions. If you remove Giannis and it's just Green, Rollins, and Turner, it is -12 per 100 possessions. So that kind of gives you the impact of what Giannis is on their best lineups here. Look, we can like speculate on trades and all of that stuff. Like I'm okay doing that. To me, the team that makes the most sense remains the Atlanta Hawks. And the reason for that is that they can easily construct so many different types of deals depending on what the Bucks want. Like you can throw together a Jalen Johnson, a Milwaukee native package. You can throw together a package centered around like Trae Young and Rissa Shea. You can throw together a package centered around like Rissa Shea, Kristaps, and one other thing in order to make the money work. This is just to make the money work, not from an asset perspective. I'm speaking. There are just a lot of different ways that you can make a deal work. The one thing that I will say though is that surveying the league right now, right? If it's Atlanta, and I think Atlanta is the most well-positioned team to do this, the Bucks are obviously going to ask for both the Pelicans and Bucks 2026 first round pick, as well as Jalen Johnson. To me, that's the first ask if I'm Milwaukee. Surveying the league, I think those might be like the two best assets point blank that might be on the board in a Giannis deal. Like, I don't think Oklahoma City gets involved. I will hear out a case for Dylan Harper over one of those two guys, but like, I don't know if Dylan Harper's, on the board, just in the same way that I don't know if Jalen Johnson's on the board in a deal like this. You know what I mean?
Well, even then, I realize Dylan Harper hasn't had the opportunity, but Jalen Johnson, I don't know, maybe I'm just higher on him than others.
No, this is kind of what I think too, for what it's worth.
Like listen, I went through it all today. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but I think very highly of Jalen Johnson is what I'd say. And I'm not saying that he should be off the board for Atlanta if they can get Giannis. All I'm saying is, to your point, I'm trying to think of a realistic option that Atlanta could go get. And in San Antonio, it's not Victor. In Oklahoma City, they're not giving up any of the big three. I wouldn't think they're not. Who are some of the other teams? Like in Detroit, Jalen Johnson is better than anybody other than Cade Cunningham, and Detroit's not giving up Cade Cunningham.
There's no point in doing the deal if you're Detroit, if you're giving up Cade.
Correct. So like, it's to your point, like as you go through teams, who is the player that a team you could convince yourself might actually be willing to trade said player, and that said player is better than Jalen Johnson?
That's kind of what my take is. Like, if you're Boston, is Jaylen Brown better than Jalen Johnson as an asset? I think probably no, because of the contract is the only reason I say that.
Jalen's on a really good contract as well.
Yeah. Jalen Johnson, I think, is on a better deal, to be clear.
Sorry, did I say Jaylen Brown?
Well, I said just Jalen. So given that they're both named Jalen, I was like, wait, I might have.
It is spelled differently, but we're not helping that out here. For those who aren't familiar or come to know, Jalen Johnson is on a 30-year flat contract right now that has 4 more years after this season. Jaylen Brown is on the second year this year, making $53 million, and that goes up to $65 at the end of that contract. Not to mention the age difference between those two guys.
Correct. So I bring all of this up to say, if I'm the Hawks, I'm probably not giving up both the 2026 Pelicans Bucks pick and Jalen Johnson, because I think, just surveying the rest of the marketplace, I don't know how anybody else would top one of those things plus SHAI, plus like other picks, plus whatever else you want to throw in. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I know that Bucks fans will look at that and think that that's like kind of crazy. It's more just when you look at the rest of the league itself, who is able to top one of those assets plus SHAI plus something else, right?
Yeah.
Or like maybe it's like Trae Young is in the deal, right? If the Bucks want to take a flyer on Trae, like I don't know what the deal would exactly look like, but the reason that the Hawks, are very clearly the favorite to me in something like this, or maybe I shouldn't say very clearly the favorite, because obviously I think Giannis will try to, wiggle his way where he wants to go. I do think that they have the best avenues to make a Giannis deal happen. The other piece of this that I do want to talk about is, if I'm the Bucks, I lose leverage against Giannis in this deal every day that I don't move him. I think that once he only has 1 year left, and this was my entire case for why I think I would have traded him last summer and why we talked about it a little bit in May, before I realized that it just wasn't happening, right? I think that Giannis is so good that if you get 2 playoff runs with him, you probably just say, screw it. You know what I mean? You probably say, let's go. We're just going to take a shot at it and see what happens, right? But with only 1 playoff run, with only 1 year, if you trade him in the offseason next year, I think he actually does start to be able to, use his leverage a little bit to be able to go, oh no, I only will go here. I only will go there. Those are my only places to go. I won't sign an extension here. I won't sign an extension there. That's where it gets complicated for Milwaukee. If I was like looking at this realistically, if I was Milwaukee, I would have moved him last summer, but like I probably would be looking at moving him at the deadline if I could, if only because I think that fewer of those, teams that might, like if he doesn't want to go to Atlanta, I'm probably willing to take a shot on it for 2 playoff runs. If I'm Atlanta, I'm probably not willing to take a shot on it for 1.
Yeah.
And give up like all of my assets.
Yeah. So with what he has left on his deal, and that's where, I wonder if they can't, we talked about however long he's out here. I think what is it, 2 to 4 weeks or whatever. So now we're into January. You only have 6 weeks then before the deadline to either make a decision as an organization on if you think that this can still work, how much of time can you see that on the court beyond what we saw at the start of the year. And then where does that leverage go as you get closer and closer to the deadline, and where do other teams end up in terms of where they're at in the standings? And, listen, every team would love to have Giannis, but I don't want to say there's few teams, but it's not like every team is realistically going to get involved. To your point, Giannis isn't going to want to be with every team in the NBA. So I think finding that sweet spot of where can we maximize our options? Where can we work this, where we can work this deal against this deal against this deal is going to be important for Milwaukee to figure out. And I'm sure it's not easy because you're trading the face of your franchise and you just naturally don't want to do that to begin with.
It's absolutely right. So we'll see where the Giannis thing lands. I mean, look, teams that could get into this, I think Miami would love to get into it. Khalil Ware, all the picks that they have, Hawkes, Pele Larson, all those guys have to be on the table in a Giannis deal. We're talking about Jalen Johnson potentially being on the table in a Giannis deal. For the 2026.
I was going to say, to your point, Sam, like nothing you just said even comes close to exciting me as much as Jalen Johnson if I'm Milwaukee.
But here's like where a team like Miami could come in. If Atlanta just decides, you know what, we're really happy with what we're building. We're really happy with the 2026 pick. We're just going to build this out for the long term and not take like the 2-year wide open run that we would have with Giannis. I get it. And that's where a team like, San Antonio could do the same thing, right? They could decide we're not going to do this. And a team like Miami then could swoop in, right, with an offer like that would have less high upside players or less established players, maybe, but might end up being something like the best offer at some point. Other teams that you could track here, I think Brooklyn, just obviously you have to bring them up because they have such a significant number of picks here moving forward. Houston, it becomes harder because, the reason that Houston, I thought, could get involved last summer was because of the fact that, some of the extensions hadn't kicked in. They had the Jalen Green money to be able to attach to this thing. Now, like the only way to construct a deal is if you include Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün, if you're doing this in season. And I don't know if Houston's going to be excited about that, given how well they've played so far this year. I think Memphis is actually like kind of a weirdly sneaky one to me. Like if they came and offered, I don't think they would do this, but like, just because I don't know if they'd be good enough with Giannis, but if they came and offered like Edey and like Cedric Howard, plus all of the picks they have, and they can like make the money work with like KCP and Brandon Clark and some of those guys, like that's at least like somewhat intriguing to me, given the way Edey has played and given the way Coward has played. I don't know that they would go down that road, to be honest. Like it doesn't feel like a Memphis move to me, but just from an assets perspective, they do have a ton of picks and they're at least worth bringing up. The Knicks were obviously discussed this summer. I just don't know how that gets done at the end of the day. Like asset wise, it feels like they wouldn't have enough, and it feels like you'd have to get into complicated 3-team constructions. San Antonio, we brought up. Toronto, I think, is worth bringing up as well if they wanted to try and consolidate some of these players into a star. would be a situation that would make perfect sense to me if they decided to go for it. Boston, I think, could try and do something like this, but they'd probably have to give up Jaylen Brown in that deal.
I don't like this team either, but you brought up Brooklyn, and I think this team is further along in terms of talent than Brooklyn. I don't think Utah is close enough to do this with only having the 2-year guaranteed window, but I watched the Utah Jazz the other night and found myself going, man, they just got to go find their star. And I think this team gets real interesting real fast. When you talk about how Keontae George has played this year, what Lauri Markkanen looks like, when Walker Kessler's healthy, Ace Bailey, I think, will continue to grow. Like, you throw Giannis into that, and that's your starting five. That now it's still the West, and you still have to, go up against the Thunder. But if we're going to throw out Brooklyn, it's not like Utah doesn't have some assets and some picks and stuff to me. Again, I don't think they would do it because I don't think the window is that close. But I mean, with Giannis, the window gets a lot more interesting. So if they were in the East, I think that's absolutely an interesting team. I think in the West, probably not.
Yeah. So that's where the Giannis thing sits. I think that's like kind of a good overarching view of it before it gets more serious. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more on Sunday with takeaways. It is obviously an incredibly important thing here moving forward. I do just want to note the Chris Paul thing. Chris Paul was sent home from the Clippers. Strange is kind of the way to put that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have a whole lot of takes other than strange, right? I was surprised that they did this big homecoming thing for Chris Paul, maybe the best player in their franchise's history. He and Blake Griffin probably. And now it's just ending with him being sent home. Look, he has not been up to NBA standard this year. It is the reality. We did a whole takeaway thing on him a couple weeks ago after he said that this was going to be his last season. And, one of the all-time greats, I don't think this really impacts the Clippers season all that much.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't giving him a whole lot. It's weird. And some of the stuff that's come out, I haven't dove into it a lot, but I know there was the whole leadership or how vocal he was or whatever. That seems strange to me because it's like Chris Paul's been in the league for 20 years. You didn't know what you were getting whenever you brought him in. Like, I feel like that would be, kind of understood in terms of what and kind of maybe the reason you were bringing him in. I don't know. It's very weird to me, and I'm kind of interested to see how it plays out. I will say, as much as we love him and all the flowers we gave him and as good as he was just a year ago, unless that Clippers situation is just that bad, even for him, and it is bad, it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to, like you said, doesn't look like a real NBA rotation player right now. Maybe a change of scenery could change that for half a season, but very weird situation to just send him home. I thought that was
very weird.
Very weird.
Okay. We're going to get into some ads before we do awards. Shout out to our friends over at Harry's. We've all been there before, shaving with razors that get dull too quickly. You don't realize it until it's too late, and you end up with an irritated neck despite having spent $30 just to get 8 refills for something that fails after 2 uses. Well, Harry's razors don't do that, and the Harry's Plus especially doesn't do that. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face. It has a refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and it has a weighted handle for added control and comfort. With Harry's Plus, you get barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades. The best part about Harry's is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their world-class blade factory in Germany. No outsourcing, no middleman, and because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep costs low. Harry's has launched their most advanced razor ever, and it's still cheaper than the Gillette Fusion 5. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/gametheory. The set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/gametheory to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. We're also going to shout out our friends over at Rula. Look, taking care of your mental health shouldn't be harder than taking care of your physical health. If you pull a muscle, you go see a doctor. But when it comes to finding the right therapist, it can be frustrating with long wait lists. You're staring down these massive out-of-pocket costs. That's why people end up just not getting help at the end of the day. But that's where Rula is going to come in. Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and the average session copay is just $15. That's basically the cost of lunch, but instead of a sandwich, you're investing in your own headspace. Rula connects you to over 15,000 licensed therapists and psychiatrists nationwide. They cut out the guesswork by matching you with someone based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements, so you're not wasting time with the wrong fit. And the best part is they don't break the bank. Rula is going to work with most insurance plans, and again, those sessions can cost as little as $15 and maybe even $0 depending on your benefits. On top of that, Rula is not just a directory. They help you book appointments, stay on top of your schedule, and keep track of progress so you actually get somewhere with your therapy. Whether it's therapy or medication management, Rula makes it simple to get the full scope of care that you need. Look, as somebody who takes medication for ADHD, like, it can be incredibly frustrating sometimes to find the right doctor that works. Luckily, I have found the right doctor, but Rula is just tremendous in being able to help you find those right psychiatrists, therapists, whatever you're looking for. Thousands of guys have already used Rula to finally get the care that they needed. Don't keep putting it off. Go to Rula.com/game theory. That's RULA.com/game theory. Take the first step, get connected, and take control of your mental health. Okay, Bryce, let's get into awards.
Yay.
I know that you love awards, and I do just kind of want to jump in because I find MVP to be the most interesting thing that we're going to talk about today, sure. Honestly, because there is like a real two-person race at the top.
Yep.
I would personally like to talk about the back three before we get into the top two. The top two were SHAI and Jokic. It's just going to be a conversation about which one of those two that we picked.
Yep.
I struggled with the fifth place. I would imagine third and fourth for you were Luka and Giannis.
Correct.
In some order.
Yep.
So who did you have at fifth?
So I flipped this around. I will just be completely transparent. I started with Jalen Brunson at fifth and ended up with Cade Cunningham as we recorded.
Okay.
And listen, people will call me a homer. That's okay. I'll take it. He did just win Eastern Conference Player of the Month. Why I struggled initially was his efficiency. He just like straight up not shooting well from the 3-point line right now. But the more I looked at it, it's like he creates, he defends, he's still scoring, gets to the free throw line, he rebounds. And so there was a group of guys, I think him, Brunson, Anthony Edwards were definitely all guys that I considered here, maybe even, one or two more. But I ultimately landed on Cade Cunningham. But I think there's obviously a tier break. Like I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then similar to last year, it was, okay, who's the fifth guy going to be? And based off them being number one in the East and how he's played, I went ahead and went Cade.
So I went with Ant. Okay. And I think Cade's like completely reasonable. I think for the fifth, you could have like Maxey, you could have Brunson, you could have like Cade. Like I'm all for, so many. You could have Donovan Mitchell. Like I'm all for so many.
Sam, literally the next four names on my list are the four guys you just said. So
yeah, like you could honestly have like a lot of different names here. I went with Ant. And the reason I went with Ant is really like the last 2 weeks when they've like pretty desperately needed somebody, I felt like, to like really stem the tide here and like get them back rolling. 41, 43, 31, 39, 32, 44. Those are his last 7 games. Anthony Edwards has been a monster recently. He has been unbelievable in terms of just carrying this team to wins. You look at the San Antonio game, like 32, that was pretty massive, I thought. His last 6 games, he's averaging 38 points in that run, and they have like needed all of those points. I thought they were competitive with Oklahoma City. They beat Boston. They beat San Antonio. They needed all of them to beat New Orleans, which, kind of says a decent amount about kind of where they're at right now, a little bit with Minnesota. the way that their point guard play has really struggled has been a whole issue as well. You know, look, you could go with any of these guys. We're going to talk about them when we get to second team All NBA. I have not loved the way that the point guards have played. I have felt like Dante, outside of knocking down threes, has been a little bit up and down. I have liked Jaden McDaniels this year. I think he's been incredibly important. I think Julius Randle has been really, really important for them in moments as well. But like outside of those guys, it has felt very barren to me. And they've needed kind of every single thing that Ant is doing, much in the same way that the Pistons have needed every single thing that Cade Cunningham is doing. In terms of like most valuable guy, ultimately I did come down to one of those two, because I think that these two are probably right now the most valuable players to their teams on really good teams. Like Minnesota's 13-8. Detroit is what now? 17-4, 17-5, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all for either of these picks, ultimately I went Ant, but if you want to go Cade, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Ant was right there for me. He's shooting 49, 41, 82. A lot of these decisions, and specifically this one, and then whenever I got to the end of I think the hardest part I had was the final few names of my All NBAs. It was just like, okay, what guy who does a little bit more? Like, do they bring something else in some other capacity? And for me, just looking at Ant and Cade, I guess my thing was, Cade rebounds a little bit better. Cade creates a little bit more. I don't know. We've talked about this before. Defensively, I think Ant has the higher ceiling on the defensive end than what Cade has, but I think Cade's more consistent on that end. At one point, I don't know if it's still true, Cade was the leading fourth quarter scorer in the entire NBA. And I also found myself, I watch every second of Cade Cunningham, and there's been some disappointments the last few games. He missed the free throw in Boston. He, didn't have a great game on Wednesday night in their loss to the Bucks. And so I think I was holding that against him initially. And then eventually I just said, like, he's been absolutely insane for a team that nobody thought was going to be where they're at. And it's not like Jaden Ivey's come back averaging 20 a game. Obviously, Jalen Duren has taken a leap into a guy that's their second best offensive threat. But I think that in and of itself is a compliment to Cade as well, that their second best offensive threat is still Jalen Duren, and they have one 3-point shooter, like legitimate 3-point shooter on this team. Yeah. And we've seen the last two games when Duncan Robinson's not in the lineup, what they look like. So I'm cool with either one. I decided I had a chance to be a homer here, and so I went with it.
Yep, I think that's fine. Okay, number 4, I had Giannis.
I had Giannis as well.
Giannis has been incredible this season. The power, the physicality, the strength, the transition play. He's averaging 28, 10, and 6, shooting 64, 44, 64 from the field. Look, we talk about Giannis every single time we do one of these MVP things. It is probably worth spending a second on him here in terms of how he's played, even though we just did, a decent amount of it in the previous section. Just because I don't know that we're going to get a chance to again. He might be ineligible for awards next time we do this. The level to which he continues to play with such force and power and strength, even at 31 years old, after the immense number of minutes and everything that he's put on his frame over the course of realistically, like since 2016, I would argue that's when he became like a real MVP candidate. Just so impressive, and he's carried this Bucks team on his back. Again, they've been excellent when he's been on the court. It is not his fault that this team is 10-13. He just continues to be absolutely one of the best players in the NBA, point blank.
Yeah, and I think it's important to always highlight the physicality he plays with. I think one thing I've tried to do this year is appreciate the nuances and the skill level of his game, where I think some of the passing, he's showing some eye manipulation to create for teammates. We talk about surrounding him with floor spacers and shooters, and it's easy to just say, oh yeah, do that, but he still has to make the right reads in those situations. And then I think like the thing that he does that I've really honed in on is the way he turns in like that lateral force into then the vertical for like that linear into vertical force. And I don't think that's often discussed about enough. His ability to change that momentum in that force. And he does have a little bit of like, hey, he'll hit you with a hesitation dribble. He'll go to the reverse finish. He's comfortable playing on the baseline, which is something I've really learned to appreciate in the game, especially in the NBA, is like, are you comfortable playing on the baseline? Because it's not always a place that people are comfortable playing with. And then obviously he does have some defensive disruption as well with that length and that athleticism, and can do and make an impact on that end of the floor also.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, I am so interested to see what happens with the Bucks here. He has been enormous for them, though, throughout the course of this entire run. Number 3, Luka, we mentioned before. Luka is having just a completely obscene scoring season. He's averaging 35 a game, on top of the 9 rebounds and 9 assists. He looks to be in much better shape to me. I know that was a talking point coming into the year, but I think it is reality that he's just in much better shape. The field goal percentage, particularly like his ability to finish on the interior, I think has been drastically better. He's drawing fouls at a career high clip, taking nearly 12 free throw attempts per game, which is bonkers. But beyond that, he's shooting 60% from 2-point range. And that is just a massive, massive number for somebody who takes on this kind of usage and this kind of just like massive, massive amount of, on ball play. Right now, he's shooting, according to Basketball Reference, 93.5% when he gets all the way to the rim, which is a bonkers number. And he does it like 2 times a game. Sometimes it's in transition. Like, I get it. But from that 3 to 10 foot range, he's still shooting 64% from the field. Out to 16 feet, he's shooting 53% from the field. Essentially, from between 3 to 16 feet, he's shooting like 58%, which is a completely absurd number right now. He has dominated that 16 foot and in range this season, just with his pure pace, his strength, his power, and on top of it, obviously the deceleration that we always talk about with him as well.
So I was going to bring up the decel because I think obviously he can use the decel to score, but he also does it to manipulate defenders to open passing lanes and passing windows. And that's what I really enjoy about his game. And I don't know that anybody shoots over contests better than him. There's guys that shoot as good, but there's so many makes where I'm just like, I can't believe he made that. Like, I can't, like the defender is right there. They have a hand right over the top. And listen, the next 2 guys do it as well. And some other guys we'll talk about, but he's so good at it. He has a real handle. He had a move on Cooper Flagg, and I realize Cooper Flagg is a rookie and all of that, but not a small dude as a rookie. And he just bumps Cooper Flagg out of the way, just completely moves him on a drive. And it was just a reminder of how big Luka Doncic is doing all of these things and how wide his shoulders are. Like, we talk about that with other guys, but we don't always talk about it with him. I think at times we see him giving real effort defensively this year as well. That has stood out to me. I believe he's averaging, 1.5 steals per game. He's taken some charges. Listen, I'm not going to act like he's a plus defender or something like that, but it's more like I have very few notes of just flat out disgust with what I've seen from him defensively. And that hasn't always been the truth with him. Here's the last thing I want to say. I think his assist numbers may go up because I think some of his teammates are still figuring out how to play with him. And listen, God bless Jake LaRavia, but he got his butt chewed by Luka a couple of games ago because he was supposed to hammer to the corner on one of those D-cells and he didn't, and Luka threw it out of bounds. And I'm not even blaming Jake LaRavia. I'm just saying, like with Jokic, sometimes you got to figure out, holy cow, these guys can make passes that nobody else I've played with can make. And so I think teammates and him and Austin Reeves and LeBron James and Ayton and Hayes and all of these guys will get even more chemistry.
I think that's true. Okay. Jokic or SHAI? Just rip the Band-Aid off. Which one did you go with?
So I went SHAI because I think it'll be a fun conversation for you and I to have because I knew you were going to go Jokic, or I thought you were going to go Jokic.
I didn't.
Oh, no.
So 2 weeks ago, I was pretty firmly on the idea that I thought that Jokic is just like putting up a unbelievably historically relevant season. And I don't know that remains false. Jokic is averaging 29, 13, and 11, shooting 61, 43, 86. His true shooting percentage is currently an obscene 24% above league average.
Sam, real quick, that true shooting number almost made me switch this last second. Like, I almost switched it solely because like that number is stupid.
72.4 true shooting percentage. Again, like he's just averaging, he's leading the league basically in points per shot, despite being like one of the highest volume players in the league, which is one of the most bonkers things that you can possibly say about a player. Ultimately, what made me kind of switch this at the end of the day is that, you know, the Nuggets are sitting here, they're 15-6, they're unbelievable. If you want to pick Jokic, I am seriously not going to fight you. I do think he's probably the best player in the world. I've thought that the defense has gotten a little bit more concerningly bad recently.
Yep.
Over the course of these last couple of weeks. Allowed 128 in a loss to Sacramento, allowed 115 in a win over Memphis, allowed 139 in a loss to San Antonio, beat Phoenix. They only gave up 112 in that game. That's fine. Gave up 131 to Dallas, and then gave up 120 to Indiana. It was competitive. Like New Orleans was competitive against them at 118 points, and then Chicago, they gave up 130. And that's like, you know, where they have started to kind of lose some games. I think that before this little run here, I think that they're 5-4 in their last 9 games. They were, I think it was like 10-2 or something to start the year.
Real quick, we talked about it. The November 23rd, I have notes from them versus the Kings. So right around there, they were a top 5 defense then, Sam. Right now, they're 17th.
I just have felt like they have not, and he particularly, I don't want to say it's a team-based thing, but I do think that he has slowed down, particularly on defense over the course of the last like 2 to 3 weeks. And it ultimately just gave me that little edge to SHAI, given everything that SHAI is doing on a 20-1 team with Oklahoma City. Now, we can speak incredibly kindly of Jokic. Jokic has been, I seriously think there's a case this is one of the best offensive seasons I've ever seen in my life. And I think there's a case that he might be the best offensive player I've ever seen in my life. The way that he completely dictates every single thing on the court, the way that he is able to make passing reads, the way that he is unguardable now, because you basically need to double him every touch when he gets the ball, and yet you can't, because if you do, you're going to get murdered in terms of the way that he's able to pass the ball. I respect so much about this guy, and if you have him as MVP again, like, it sounds like I am, you know, hemming and hawing on this, because I am, to be honest with you. We're 20 games into the season, like, it's a small sample. Sorry. I'm not going to complain if you have him as the MVP, but like, I just think that the defense has been bad enough over the course of the last 3 weeks where I thought that SHAI got the little bit of the nod, given how good he has been on defense, and given that, oh, by the way, like, he has also been pretty darn close to historically relevant as a scorer this year, averaging 33 points on 55, 43, 88. You look at his, you know, true shooting percentage right now, it's 16% above league average on a 21-1 team that was without an all NBA player for the first, 18, 19 games of the season. I just kind of had to go SHAI at the end of the day, because he just has been a little bit more well-rounded while also being historically dominant.
So that's where I ended up as well. Regardless of what I thought you were going to do, I was going to go SHAI. You know, I wasn't going to play it up just for the sake of the podcast. I would have taken, you know, that side of the argument, but what it came down to for me, and I think it's fair to bring up that Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown have been out of the lineup. That's 2 of the Nuggets' better defenders, the single best defender in Aaron Gordon's case. But I have a lot of notes about Jokic's defense, and I'm usually the one trying to defend his defense, Sam. I've come on here and tried to defend it with his hand activity and things like that. And there's a lot of like, just refuse to move his feet on that possession or whatever, give up offensive rebound, that type of stuff. The numbers are silly. He is, I think, probably the best player in the world. Here's where I ultimately landed. One, you just said something that as awesome as Jokic's numbers are, even the true shooting thing, you don't have to go that far to find SHAI's true shooting percentage. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's that much below. And then here's what I thought about. If we're truly doing quarter of the season and we're not projecting out nothing, like this has been a historically great 22 game stretch from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you're telling me that if they end up historically great, I'm not giving the MVP to the best player on that team when he's putting up the numbers that SHAI is putting up? Like, you just can't tell me. If this team wins 74 games, you can't tell me SHAI's not going to win MVP. And I know that hasn't happened yet, but right now, over a 22 game sample, their winning percentage says they are going to be the best regular season team in NBA history. I'm not saying that will happen. I have no idea if it will or not. But for this stretch of what we're evaluating, that's historic success. And he is the best player on that team, unquestionably, that puts up silly numbers and does it on both ends. This isn't anti-Jokic. I absolutely love Jokic, but I do think that SHAI absolutely has an argument in a debate, even though Jokic is putting up the numbers and doing the things we just talked about.
I completely agree. And like, if you want to try and make the case that this team is like truly great, without SHAI, look, they'd be a playoff team without SHAI. I do completely agree with that. But he elevates these guys. Like if you look at like the numbers with SHAI and Holmgren out there, for instance, right? Like they average 127 points per 100 with SHAI and Holmgren out there. They allow 106.6 according to Data Baller when SHAI and Holmgren are out there. When Chet is out there without SHAI, they allow 100 points per 100 possessions, but they only score 111. That is a 10-point difference in terms of the on-offs that is additive from SHAI to the second best player on the team during this run, right? Like, all due respect to J-Dub, he just hasn't played more than 3 games to this point. I really can't get past the fact that this team is 21-1 and their second best player has played 3 games. We'll get to coach of the year later. Like that's completely crazy to me. Like they have won more games over expectation than I think all but like 3 teams in the league right now, if memory serves.
Well, and
I know that they played the easiest schedule. Like I'm not going to sit here and deny that. If you look at the strength of schedule, they've played the easiest schedule in the league. That is not, denying any. That's just like kind of factual.
Who's played the second easiest schedule?
Go ahead.
The Denver Nuggets.
Correct. So, and look, part of that is that they don't get to play themselves. Like that's the thing. Like if you play Oklahoma City, your strength of schedule goes through the roof because they are so much better than everybody else right now. Same with Denver. Like you don't get to play yourself in this circumstance. So look, what SHAI is doing as a scorer, like everything from a perimeter creation basis, it's felt like has been on his shoulders or AJ Mitchell's shoulders. He is averaging 33, 5, and 6.5. He's averaging 1.5 steals per game. I think he has been really good defensively, despite the fact that, so much of it is not on his shoulders defensively. Yeah. He just plays the role really, really well. Even when teams try to attack him, he is really good and make sure that they don't get the advantage all that consistently, even when they do attack him. His ability to finish on the interior is just completely confounding. The way he's able to contort his body, the way he's able to, find these little angles, find these little things that he's able to do around the court in order to, create an angle for himself. He is shooting at least 50% from the field at every level outside of the 3-point line, where he's shooting 43%, by the way. So like drastically above league average, but he is shooting 50% from 16 feet to the 3-point line. He's shooting 57% from 10 to 16 feet. He's shooting 52% from 3 to 10 feet, and he's shooting 73% at the rim, obviously. That is such ridiculous 3-level scoring dominance that like I can't almost like fathom it. That you're able to just get your shot whenever you want, wherever you want. It feels Jordan-y to me when I watch him. He does it in a totally different way, but like just in terms of the mid-range dominance, in terms of the ability to like contort your body, the fact that you play as a high-level defender, it feels Jordan-y when I watch him. Like he has reached that level to me. Like he has to sustain it for a decade longer now to like reach the all-time status of Jordan. But like at this point, I don't think he's reached like Jordan's peak by any stretch, but I'm just saying that like when I watch him, this is like the first time since Kobe where I've been like, okay, I can at least like sit here and not sound crazy bringing up that name in terms of play style.
Yeah, the body control is so impressive with him. And I just want to hammer home the 3-point shooting because that sometimes that's been the thing that people have pushed to is like, let him take the 3 and, keep him out of the mid range and not let him take the 3, but force him into volume 3-point shooting. And he's turned it into a strength. And he's now at the point where he'll hit you with the jab step back 3-pointer. And, like what are you supposed to do as a defender? Because if you don't go for it, then he's by you into the mid range. If you do go for it, then he's stepping back. He's knocking that down. We don't need to get into this, but obviously he draws fouls and gets to the free throw line, which, listen, whether people like it or not, all of the best scorers in the NBA, all of these guys we're talking about are getting to the free throw line a ton. And he does it at, one at the highest level outside of Luka. But when you talk about every kind of level of the court, he's able to score the basketball, and even the 3-pointer has gotten there now. And that makes him even harder to defend.
Okay, let's go to all NBA.
Yep.
So right now we have first team Jokic, Shai, Luka, Giannis. I had Ant, you had Cade.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Second team, I had Cade, you have Ant.
Yep.
I have Mitchell, Brunson, Maxey.
Yep.
And then I put Curry on.
I put Jaylen Brown here.
Okay, I have Jaylen third team. So like I'm totally good with
Steph Curry's my first third team.
Yeah. So which of those guys do you want to talk about here? I'll just kind of give you the first pick here.
Tyrese Maxey, because he's been incredible. Listen, some of his numbers, I don't want to say they're inflated, but listen, he is playing 40 minutes a night, which is the highest number in the NBA by over 3 minutes per game, above like Luka, Cade Cunningham, Austin Reeves, guys like that. But he's scoring 32.5 points on 47, 39.
So, I know when you say that, you're just like kind of cutting off criticism potentially of what his counting numbers are.
Yeah.
Can I just say that like playing 40 minutes a night, carrying the load that he is a positive. That's a benefit, not a detraction.
Yes.
Like having to carry the load that he does, everything offensively for 40 minutes a night. That's not a detraction from what he's doing.
Yeah.
If you want to try and use that to like somehow diminish his numbers, you're out of your mind and you're like not watching everything that he's doing for the team every single night, where it feels like literally everything is on his shoulders. If he doesn't play well, they lose point blank.
Yeah. So yes, I only say that because I can hear people use that to counter it. Per 100 possessions, he's still 9th in the NBA in scoring, right there with all of these other guys we're about to talk about, including the efficiency, creating. He's doing everything for his team, as you mentioned. And like you said, I am one of those that just thinks that him playing that many minutes is insanely impressive because of just what that takes in this league, but also the energy he plays with. And listen, he's averaging 7.5 assists, Sam, over a steal and a half. I think he plays hard defensively. Again, I'm not sure he's a guy that I would say is a good defender. Like I would say Donovan Mitchell's probably a better defender than him, but I think he's probably better than Jalen Brunson on the defensive end, at least more impactful than Jalen Brunson. Maybe they both can be attacked in the same way. if a team really wants to lean into it. But I think Maxey can be more disruptive. So I think of all of these guys we've talked about so far, he's the one that's, I don't want to say surprised me, but it's just been like, wow, like he just really popped onto the scene. And I don't know that I would have guessed second team all NBA for Tyrese Maxey 22 games into the season.
Yeah. I mean, look, I didn't know what the Sixers team would look like this year. You know, you look at their record, they are currently sitting here. They're 11-9 as of time of recording in the Eastern Conference. They're 9th in the East. Like, I get it that, you know, they're not, you know, rated particularly highly there, but you know, just look at everything he's had to go through. They have no idea if Joel Embiid's going to play on a night-to-night basis. Paul George has played fewer games than Joel Embiid, by the way, this season, which is like kind of a crazy thing to say.
It is.
He's starting in the backcourt with a rookie in VJ Edgecombe, who's been a bit of a roller coaster. Great start. Been kind of messy since then. His starting center a lot of the time is Andre Drummond, which, you know, we have concerns about. Two guys in their rotation, like pretty regularly playing, you know, I would guess that Dom Barlow and Jabari Walker are averaging 20 minutes a night, right? Like between those two, they've played. I'm just kind of looking at the map
have
here.
To be. I mean, and those guys have probably started double-digit games between the two of them. No,
they're actually averaging 26 minutes a night. Looking at it, like you know, they've played 530 minutes this season between the two of them. I mean, if you just like kind of do the math there, 530 divided by 20, that's what, like 26 to 27 minutes. So that's what they're playing per night.
Yeah. Barlow, Watford, and Walker are playing the majority of their 4-man minutes whenever you have Drummond playing the center minutes.
So that's a minimum guy and two-way guys are playing the 4 for them with Andre Drummond at the 5 most nights. And they're sitting here at 11-5. This team should be nowhere near 11-5, and it's a credit to Tyrese Maxey that they are 11-9. I'm sorry, I said 11-5. It's a credit to Tyrese Maxey that they're 11-9. I want to talk about Steph real quick.
Of course, I'm always
Steph
game.
Curry. Again, like maybe this is just me being like the guy who just enjoys watching Stephen Curry more than anybody else in the league. I know you feel this way too, but. Steph is averaging more points than he has in either of the last 2 seasons. He's at 28 points per game. He is shooting 47, 39, 92. He's taking about as many threes as he ever has in a season. Again, like true shooting percentage compared to league average, he's like 10% above league average. Despite the fact that like outside of Jimmy Butler, this team has like no real shot creation. To be honest, like, all due respect to Jonathan Kuminga, but like, I don't even know that they really trust Jonathan Kuminga on a night-to-night basis. It feels like, even still, Al Horford signing has not been as effective or as impactful as what we had hoped for. Obviously, Draymond Green has been awesome on defense. We will talk about him later, but offensively, like it has been kind of a slog for Draymond this year, even compared to his standards, I think. Buddy Hield has not made shots. He's at 30% from 3. Steph has had to carry this team in a real way, even beyond what he typically has to. And Jimmy Butler has too. I debated having Jimmy Butler as all NBA for what it's worth, and he just missed for me. But Steph to me has been everything for them this year, and he is the scheme. And if I had to take a guy, like I'm probably taking him within the top 10. If he made me pick 10 guys in the league, I can't get to 10 without him.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the per 100, he's like a top 5 scorer. He's putting up the numbers you mentioned in 31 minutes, and some of that is because at the end of the day, he probably can't play the 40 minutes a night that Tyrese Maxey plays, and that does matter. But just whenever you look at those counting stats, he's scoring 28 points in 31 minutes a night. Sam, just ridiculous stuff. And I think people may point to the assist numbers. I don't care what the assist numbers. I watched the game and I know his gravity and what that creates for his teammates. Sheer off ball running around, bringing 2 defenders to him, all that stuff. So he doesn't
quick
get
swing
enough
passes too.
Correct. Like he generates, and we are still in that realm right now. I think eventually that's why I struggled with the final few names is like, okay, we're out of these guys are the best generators of offense for their team. No questions asked right now through 20 to 22 games. And he's still one of those guys. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what he still does at a very high level.
And I do just want to bring up Mitchell real quick. 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, shooting 51, 38, 84 so far. Completely ridiculous this season. And that Cavs team has been a mess.
Yeah.
It feels like when I watch them. Jared Allen has missed 7 games. Obviously, Garland has missed like a good portion of the season to this point. He's only played 8 games. Max Strus has missed a significant amount of time. Sam Merrill has missed a significant amount of time. The way Mitchell has had to carry them offensively every single night and been the biggest piece why they are even like kind of respectable. Like they're sitting here at 13-10. I know it hasn't been as sweet as what we all thought it might be for Cleveland coming into the year. Certainly, I thought that they would be much more effective than what they have been. Mobley has not really taken that next step offensively, unfortunately for them, that we all hoped that he might. He's had to carry it all, and he has done so being about as efficient as he has ever been. You look at his true shooting percentage compared to league average. He's never been above 6% above league average. Right now, he's 10% above league average. So, given how much attention he's getting every single night, I think his finishing has been absolutely tremendous. The shooting has been really high level. He's drilling 38% from 3, obviously, taking, a career high 11 of those things per game. We can't speak highly enough of Donovan Mitchell, and Brunson obviously just remains, an incredible driver of offense as well.
Well, and that team is 3rd in the NBA in offensive rating right now, the Knicks. And obviously he's the guy like again, I think every name we've mentioned so far is the driving force of their offense with, there's a mixture of what some of these guys bring on the defensive end. I think there's a couple more names that definitely have done that at a high level so far this year. That's why I had Jaylen Brown's second team because of the success the Celtics have had this year and him having to do everything for that team. And then I think after you get through him, maybe one other name, then it's like the next tier of creators for their team, or you start to get into the second guy on teams. And so I'll be interested. Like that's where I really struggled. I'll be interesting to see where you went with those guys. But
yeah, I ended up with like 17 or 18 names for 15 spots, and I'm kind of curious to talk through it. I haven't even like totally decided yet. Like I want to talk through it while we're talking. Sure. But Jaylen Brown is one of the names for sure for me. I had him at 11. Yep. Absolutely unequivocally an all NBA guy this season. 29 points on 50% from the field, 35% from 3, 77% from the line. Gets double and triple teamed, on drives and, certainly on some touches, he'll get double teamed. Derek White has, as he's elevated into the bigger role, has not been, as awesome as what we maybe could have hoped for, shooting 37% from the field, 32% from 3. Peyton Pritchard, I think, has actually been pretty good as he elevates into the, higher role within the team.
He started out cold, but he's been hitting shots recently. Definitely.
And Anthony Simons has not been very effective to me. I know that he is also hitting shots recently, but, I don't love the Anthony Simons experience is what I would say. The defense is
bad,
very questionable. Yeah, bad is fine too. I'm comfortable with that statement. But, look, in Jaylen and Derek White too, and Nimi Keita as well, probably deserves a mention here as in addition to Josh Minot, Jordan Walsh, all those guys. But, the fact that this defense is sitting right around league average too is a credit in part to Jaylen Brown, but, as much to Keita and Minot and Walsh and Derek White and those guys too. But, Jaylen Brown has played a role in that as well. He's not a bad defender by any stretch of the imagination. Like they're sitting here 4th in offensive rating. When we talked about them in the preseason, I felt pretty good about them being like a top, 8 or so offense in the league, just because of the Missoula factor. Like he makes sure that they take the right shots every single time down the court. Jaylen Brown has been incredible though in those late shot clock situations to be able to make sure that he's able to consistently get to spots.
3rd in the NBA in usage right now, and I think he's just playing his role really, really well at a very high level for them. And they're just straight up. The offense is better. It's still better than what I thought. Positive net rating, above 500 team, nowhere near where I thought this team would be, especially if you told me the shooting splits of Derek White are what you mentioned earlier.
Yep, 100%. You know, I'm just kind of looking through like late shot clock numbers because it feels like he takes a decent amount of those to me, even though the thing is that like they don't actually end up, you know, late in the shot clock all that often because they play so fast. But like, you know, even still, he's making one of those late shot clock attempts per game, which is like 12th in the league right now. So, you know, he's not doing like what Jamal Murray's doing, where, you know, he's making 55% of his late shot clock attempts, which is bonkers. But, you know, I think Jalen's been pretty good for this offense, particularly in those moments. Okay, third team. You know, and look, I had Jalen third team. I had him 11th. So we have 4 spots left.
Yep.
I'm going to list off the names that I had for these spots.
Okay.
I have Scotty Barnes, Devin Booker, Alperen Şengün, Austin Reeves, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Durant.
Yep. So
do you have anybody else to throw in there?
So where did you end up on Karl Anthony Towns?
I ended up lower. I think it's been too much of a roller coaster compared to the rest of these guys.
So the two I will immediately go with is Şengün and Jalen Johnson. Şengün was actually my 12th guy. I just think that team has been obviously very good this year. They're second in net rating. And I think he is the hub of that offense. We've talked about his improvement defensively. I think the more interesting one for me is Durant. I had Durant right there, but I haven't loved Durant's defense this year, Sam. Like I feel like it's been pretty rough. And so as I was thinking like through this, that ended up him being behind guys like Şengün, Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, and Devin Booker for me.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. So who were the two that you said that you had for sure?
So Şengün and Jalen Johnson. I mean, I ended up with all of them, but like Şengün and Jalen Johnson were like, I was like 100% in on those two. And then I was like Scotty Barnes, Devin Booker, Durant. I had Towns and Holmgren, Franz Vaughn. Like my list gets long after that. So
yeah. No, like the next group for me after these 17 or like 7 names here for 5 spots. Chet, you know, who was the other one you mentioned there? Cat is in that group for me. Like
Franz, Jamal Murray, Bam.
Jamal Murray is definitely in that group for me. Franz is in that group for me. Bam is in that group for me. He just missed a few too many games compared to a couple of these guys. We'll talk about Bam a little bit later on as well. I did go with Şengün. He was like 13 for me. So we can talk about him real quick. Just doing such an amazing job of being the hub of their offense across the board. The finishing has been slightly better, I would say, over the course of this little run here, especially recently. You know, 27 points against Utah, 31 points against Utah, 28 points against Sacramento. It has helped playing a few of those teams that don't have much of an interior presence right now. But 23, 9, and 7, shooting 50, 39, 74. Again, just an absolute hub of their offense. They throw the ball into him on the block. They throw him the ball on the high post at the elbows. And he's just able to create either via bully ball or collapsing the defense and kicking out. He has been a monster, and I think the defense continues to improve. There are some moments that I know that staff can get frustrated with, but like I think that he is at the very least like passable on defense and is like pretty solid within their scheme, especially you know, the 2 big scheme where they're able to kind of make it work.
Yeah, I feel like at one point when I was reading back through stuff, he was like below 50% on 2-pointers at that point in the season. And now he's definitely above that. So I feel like, he had a start to the season where he wasn't making those. The 3-pointer, will be interested to see if like the volume ends up mattering or not, or kind of where that lands. But ultimately, like, I just think that team is very good. And I think he is obviously a massive part of it. And so there was a little bit of like the Houston Rockets thing, but also I just think Şengün has been that impressive this year.
I had Barnes as like a definite for me, like a no doubter. He's averaging 28 and 5 with nearly 1.5 blocks, 1.5 steals per game, shooting 51, 41, 85 right now. All the concerns about him in the preseason, do you remember those? As he was trying to figure out like where exactly the fit is, as he lets these guys kind of figure out their own fit. No, he's just completely dominating right now.
Well, I don't know about for you, but I'm also going to talk about him again very shortly, because I think that's the pitch for Scotty Barnes, and I'm trying not to he's one of the best off-ball defenders in the NBA, Sam. One
Correct.
of, not the, but one of the. Now, whenever we can dive into that deeper in terms of on the ball and all of that, but when you're one of the best off-ball defenders and disruptors in the NBA, along with the offensive stuff you just mentioned, that squarely puts you in this conversation. I ended up with him on, but it was like, he definitely was more of a like, between all the names we've thrown out, it was more of a discussion. Şengün and Jalen Johnson were my like hard and fast, these guys are on.
Yeah.
Scotty was a little bit more like anywhere from 14 to 17, 18, something like that.
So I ended up with Scotty at 12. And the reason that I went with him over Jalen is the defense. Sure. I think that he is like pretty aggressively better than Jalen Johnson on defense, while they're also being, they're comparable on offense. I would say Jalen Johnson is better on offense for sure, especially out in transition and, with the way that he's also improved as a shooter. Scotty has as well. He's making shots this year. We'll see. He's just been such a roller coaster. There long stretches where he makes shots, and there are long stretches where it feels like the ball doesn't go in. So far, it's been a long stretch where he's made shots, and that's the most important thing in this conversation. He has made the shots. So, the actual results matter, and Barnes, so far, he's a 50, 40, 85 guy, while also being like a clear all defense pick and averaging 27 or 28 and 5. Like, that's just like automatically all NBA to me right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. My quibble, I guess, is like, I think Jalen Johnson is significantly better than him offensively. While also, and my argument would be, there's no question that Jalen Johnson has been the hub and the driving force of Atlanta's offense since Trae Young went out. And while I would probably say Scotty is in Toronto, the usage says that Brandon Ingram is. It's only a little bit more. Like, it's a little bit more.
They share the load a lot more.
So I think this is why I ended up so high on Jalen Johnson, is just like, no question Scotty's better defensively. But Jalen, the rebounding, the creation, the scoring, and this is for me, like, I kind of default to the hub of the offense and the load that puts on somebody. There's also a little bit of like recency bias. I did the breakdown of his whatever game the other night on Game Theory, and then watched him go crazy against Detroit in the second half a couple nights later. So there's a little bit of that as well. Again, I ended up with Scotty on my third team. I think both of them very much deserve to be here.
My last two guys were Jalen Johnson in the end, and Devin Booker. Yep. Devin Booker has been like carrying the Phoenix offense. Obviously, we've talked about that a little bit when we've talked about Phoenix on takeaways a couple of times. 25 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.7 assists. The 3-point percentage is down. And if you look at the like overall shooting numbers, like his true shooting percentage is like barely above league average right now. But it's just so clear that like every single time that they play, every team is loading up to stop him, much in the same way that they are with Jaylen Brown. Right? Like, it just feels like the half court load is so massive on his shoulders every single time he plays that I'm willing to at least like sacrifice a little bit of efficiency in this conversation because of how difficult his assignment is.
Yeah. So he was one that I probably had the toughest with. I ended up with him on just because they've been so good, and he's obviously the driving force of the offense, but it's like, I mean, like, Austin Reeves, just like efficiency has been better, and the points per game are better, and all of that. But I guess even the assists per game aren't that different, and Reeves averages more rebounds per game. I think Booker is definitely the one I would be most willing to listen to people say like somebody else. I mean, I'm willing to listen to any of it, but just because this again, I defaulted to the fact that Booker is the driving force of that offense, where Austin Reeves gets to play off of Luka Doncic. Durant is playing off of these other guys, and I don't think that defense isn't great for a lot of these names. It's where I think Franz came into play for me in terms of him being the driving force of offense down there a lot in the non-Paulo games, even though Desmond Bane does a lot and Franz brings it on the defensive end. And it's where Chet came into the equation for me, because I know Chet's offense isn't anywhere close to the names we're talking about. He's the best defender of anybody we've talked about, anchoring the best defense for however long. So that's why all of these names came into play for me. And I was like trying to hash out which I found to be most valuable, and ultimately defaulted to, are they the driving force of the offense? And that's why I went ahead with Booker as well.
Yeah. So I think that's completely reasonable. All of that. What I will say about Reeves, if you want to try and make a case for Austin Reeves over Devin Booker, like I will listen to this. Without Luka Doncic on the court, Austin Reeves is averaging 37 points per 75 possessions, which is completely crazy according to Data Baller. 8.5 assists, 4.9 rebounds, 69 true shooting percentage without Luka. So like we're saying that this is when he is the one carrying the load on offense. You know what I mean? So if you want to make that case, like I think it's like a fairly reasonable case to make that Austin Reeves would be all NBA to this point.
Sam, quick trivia. Who has a better true shooting percentage in general, Austin Reeves or SHAI-GILGEOUS-Alexander?
I would have said Shai, but am I wrong?
So on dunks and threes, it has Austin Reeves 0.5% higher than SHAI-GILGEOUS-Alexander right now.
Okay, shout out Hillbilly Kobe, just going nuts out here. Austin Reeves is like well deserving of being in this conversation, though. Again, like he's averaging 28 points, 5.7 rebounds, 6.6 assists, shooting 52, 36, 88. He was number 16 for me. Like I completely understand. I probably went more the route of like spreading the love in terms of like the teams and everything. Yeah. But if you want to put Austin on there, I think that I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it.
So like, were there any, like Bam was a long list guy for me. Denny, like Portland just hasn't won enough, but he's been insane.
Denny's like the all-star, not all NBA.
Yeah. I think the rest of my names like are just all-star, not all NBA guys. So I just wanted to make sure I got a couple of names in there as well. So,
okay, let's do rookie of the year real quick. I think we can knock that out fairly quickly. Okay. Did we both have Khan at number one?
Yeah.
I had Khan at 1, 18 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 46, 41, 90. That is completely crazy for a rookie. His true shooting percentage, 5% above league average. He is not like a catastrophic defender. He knows where he's supposed to be, at least, and he's big and physical and will get his chest in front of you. The feet are not awesome, but that's something that he'll continue to work on. What did you like most about Khan?
Yeah, I mean, the shot making, but listen, a game I watched recently, I was more impressed with what he's been able to do off the bounce. And I think if you create advantages for him, he's going to take advantage of those opportunities, and he can knock it down in the mid-range, seen him get to the rim a little bit and figure that out. So it's just the overall efficiency. And listen, I realize Cooper has come on recently, and once they've got him into the right role, and my guess is 20 games from now, if I had to put money on it, Cooper will end up being the guy that's number one. But I want to reiterate something, because I can, people will tweet us. This is not a projection of their careers. This is not a projection of who's going to win rookie of the year this year. This is an analysis, and you can disagree with this analysis, but I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking. We are evaluating the first 20 to 22 games of this season. Nothing before, nothing after, nothing in the future. And to me, Kon Knippel has been the best rookie with the way he has scored, even the defense, right? Like, I think he's going to be a neutral defender in the league. I don't think he's going to be a major plus, but I don't think he's going to be a major negative. And I think the all-around scoring is what has been better than what I thought. And I will also shout out Charles Lee, who I think has used him in exceptionally well.
Did we both have Cooper at number 2?
I had Cooper number 2.
Okay. I also had Cooper at number 2. The full season numbers, 17 points, 6.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists, shooting 48, 26 from 3, which is not great, but 80% from the line. Has been an impactful defender, 1.4 steals, 0.6 blocks. Consistently makes a strong impact on that end, despite the fact that he is, I believe, still 18 years old for another couple of weeks here. Look, they're 8-15. They're catastrophic on offense because they started, no guards for the first 7 games of the year or whatever. But, they are 5th in defensive rating, and he plays a huge role in that. If you made me say right now, I'm going to say that at the end of the season, Cooper wins Rookie of the Year. I feel pretty good about that. But, and part of that is that he's really starting to come on here over the course of the last 3 or 4 games. 13 points, 11 assists against the Lakers, 35-8 against the Clippers, 24-8 against Denver in a win, 22-6 against Miami. That was last night. He is starting to figure it out, much in the same way he did at Duke. It took him a month to really settle in. And then after that, he just completely obliterated people. I don't know if it's going to be quite like that, but if you told me he averaged 20 points a game the rest of the year, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah. The only thing I do want to say is I think his off-ball defense is really good. I'm interested to track the point of attack on-ball defense because there's some rough possessions there, but unquestionably that was the number 2 guy for me.
Yep. I would agree with that. Who did you have at 3?
I had VJ still because the beginning of the year did happen. I realize he hasn't been as good, but we can't just completely throw out what he did. The sample size is still 20 to 22 games, and he had that amazing run to start the year. And ultimately, his team is the only one that's really won of most of the names we're going to talk about. So I wanted to give him a little bit of a boost for that as well.
Yeah. I've struggled a little bit with the efficiency piece of it with VJ.
Sure.
And look, Cedric Howard has really fallen off in terms of the shooting side of it as well. I went with Coward because, I've enjoyed the Cedric Howard experience on both ends of the court. I think that both VJ and Cedric have been great. It did come down to VJ and Cedric for me at 3 and 4. It's one of those two. But the key is that I think the top 2 are really settling in with Con and Cooper.
Yep. I had Cedric as well. And then Fears rounded out my first team.
Okay. I'm trying to save defense for the end here. Let's go most improved player. Okay. Who did you have at number 1?
Okay, so this was really hard for me, Sam. This list. Yeah. I have a list of 20 and almost 20 names.
It's just it's such a an amorphous award in terms of what we're giving out here.
So I took out all sophomores and I took out the guys that took a huge leap. So I'll just I took out the Austin Reeves, Denny Abdia, major leap, those guys. And if anybody wants it to be those guys, by all means. Essentially, I finally asked myself, who's the guy that is surprising me as this good right now? And the answer for me was Ryan Rollins. I
also have Ryan Rollins at 1.
Shoot. So he was that's what I had to do. I had this major list and I just said, because number 2 for me is Keontae. But ultimately, I even had to tell myself, Ryan Rollins has surprised me more than even what Keontae has done in some of these other names.
So I had Keontae at 4 for what it's worth. So we'll talk through kind of where we are on all of that. But Ryan Rollins, number 1. Ryan Rollins last year, he had an amazing close to the year. He was great last year in Milwaukee by the time he really started to play. Ryan Rollins' full season stats last year, he averaged 6 points a game in 14 minutes a night, 1.9 rebounds, 1.9 assists. This year, Ryan Rollins in his, what is this? This is year 4 or year 5? Right? Year 4, I think it is.
Yes, I think
he is right. Now averaging 17.9 points per game, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting 49, 39, 78, and still playing the high level defense that got him on the court in the first place. He is by far, to me, the player who has like elevated his standing in the league and changed his team's trajectory. Like, can you imagine where Milwaukee is right now? Giannis is like gone if Ryan Rollins is not there, guys. Like, I'm just saying, if Ryan Rollins is not as good as he is, the Giannis experience in Milwaukee, like everyone is like, Giannis has his bags packed and, all the fan base is like reminiscing about the good times that we had with Giannis and everything. And we're just trying to figure out where the landing spot's going to be. The fact that we're not there entirely yet is largely because Ryan Rollins has taken such a massive leap as a driver, as a scorer, as a real like offensive backcourt force on some level who can actually get to the rim. He's not just a catch and shoot guy. He can really play with the ball in his hands. It is a massive, massive leap that is completely like on some level, maybe change the trajectory of where the Bucks are going. Maybe not. Like maybe it's too little too late, but the fact that there's even a chance of it says so much.
And he's good defensively too. I mean, he's good on that end as well. And yeah, I just, it's such, he's been so good. And I think you're exactly right in terms of how much it's changed Milwaukee. Because what I said earlier about the Milwaukee front office maybe wanting to see how this thing plays out, that's not happening if Ryan Rollins isn't on the roster, because you just wouldn't even come close to having the backcourt play that you think you would need to win, even in the Eastern Conference, without him playing like this.
Yep. Who did you have at number 2?
I did have Keontae George at number 2.
Yeah.
And again, it came down a little bit to, I wasn't sure what he was. Like we kind of had a running joke on like, who's the Utah Jazz's most exciting young player? And it's like,
yeah, it's
silence for a few seconds. And, is Keontae even the answer? I think he was my answer, but I didn't love saying it. But
I was way lower on Keontae.
Yeah. So
I totally get it.
My worry here is like, not to like then be negative, but like the 3-point percentage still isn't there, but the 2-point percentage has skyrocketed. The free throw attempts have skyrocketed and the assist numbers look good, even though the turnovers are up. And I even thought he was getting into people defensively the other night. Like I've much more hope right now that Keontae might be a starting level guard in the NBA, where I thought he was like a 6-man bucket getter coming into the season. That's major growth for me.
Yeah, like I agree with that. Like I think there's a real chance he's like an actual starter in the NBA now, which says like on a good team, like I think he might be a starter in the NBA now. He still has some things to iron out. He's played way harder on defense, and it's like he is not the worst defender in the NBA. Like I thought he was, the first couple of years he was in the league. He is nowhere near that now. He's still not good, but like it's not like truly egregiously terrible anymore. Massive leap in scoring in large part because of the free throws and the ability to get to the paint and deal with contact. It's been a massive win for him. That's looking like a real win of a draft pick for the Utah Jazz at number 16. I went with Jalen Duren at 2.
Okay.
The level to which he's improved on the ball, particularly as a driver, I think is like a huge factor for me. Yeah.
No, he was third for me. The offensive growth is incredible. I don't think that there's been, at times I hear people talk about the defensive growth, and I think that is overstated. I don't think he's as good defensively as what people talk about sometimes. I think it's still level with where we saw at the end of last year, which was growth from the beginning of last year to the end, and then it stayed. Yeah. So like, it's good. It's much better than what it was early in his career. I think he's probably a neutral defender for a big, but the offensive, every team continues to struggle with him spin moving on them, driving downhill, drawing fouls. Like it's almost night in and night out right now. And it's real growth, and it is much needed and a huge part of the Pistons' success so far this year.
Yeah, he might make the All-Star team. We're sitting here, he's averaging 19 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 66% from the field. Who was so you had Duren third.
Yeah, so I went Rollins, George, Duren, Colin Gillespie.
Gillespie is who I had third. So Gillespie is averaging 13 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting 44, 44, 83. This is a player that last year was on a 2-way. Last year he was on a two-way, and we could talk about the fact that he shouldn't have been on a two-way, right? Like that was wrong. The fact that he was on a two-way was incorrect. But like he averaged 6 points a game last year, and the year before, like in Denver, like he was averaging a triple-double in the G League, and they still didn't really give him a chance. Now we're getting a chance, right? Like, and he's doubled his production across the board. And he's now like a critical factor in one of the most fun, like surprising teams in the league. If you want to say Keontae George over him, like I'm not going to sit here and like fight with you about it. Like I'm for it, but I wanted to give some love to Colin Gillespie. We gave some love to him on the last episode as well. But
the text we got about that was hilarious too. That made my day. I don't know if we want to share or not, but the text we got.
I'm fine sharing it. So our good friend Adam Finkelstein, who's going to be on the show next week, actually. Fink was like, had this whole thing set up about Gillespie where he wrote about it and he did a video on it. He was like, you guys are killing me. You keep beating me to the spot where we got him like one day ahead. Shout out Fink. He's the best. But Gillespie is who I have at third.
I was going to pull up the actual text real quick because the actual text. So he said, me at 1 p.m. excited about my NBA story to run on Gillespie. Me at 2 p.m. Eastern while in the gym listening to your pod. And it was essentially like the cuss emoji because he thought he was going to be the first to get the Gillespie is playing awesome out there. So shout out Finkelstein. Awesome dude.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Coach of the Year. I have a feeling I know who you have.
So listen, I understand this and I'm going to kind of contradict myself because of the pitch I made for SHAI and the fact that if they do what they've done, I'm still going JB because it's going to be my only chance to go JB. What they have done, what would be interesting if you could honestly ask people, would you be more surprised if Detroit was number 1 in the East on December 4th or that the Oklahoma City Thunder were 21-1 on December 4th? I really wonder what people's truthful answer would be. And it may still be the Thunder, and that may still be why Dagnall is should be Coach of the Year because of, not having J-Dub and all of that. Listen, I think JB's done an incredible job. It started last year. This has nothing to do with last year. I am going a little bit homer. This is probably even more homer than the Cade Cunningham first team All-NBA. But I just hope people do appreciate what he's done with that roster, where they're at defensively, offensively, net rating, all of it. Because it's still not like the greatest roster assembled, even for the Eastern Conference.
So I have JB at 2. I think that everything you said is completely reasonable. I have Dagnall at 1. Sure. And the reason is that if you had told me that J-Dub would be out for the first 19 games of the year, Lou Dort would miss 7 games, Aaron Wiggins would miss half the games so far, Caruso would miss 7 games, Isaiah Joe would miss 5 games, and that they are still 21-1, I would say it's more surprising than the Pistons being in first place in the East.
Probably fair.
Because the way he's had to like cobble these lineups together, and look, he has SHAI. He is, one of the 2 biggest advantages in the NBA. It makes it drastically easier. I don't want to sit here and argue or fight with that. That's absolutely true. But every night, like it's kind of different. And it's really impressive to be able to do this without an all-NBA player where you are 21-1. You are on a historic pace. You are dominating teams. You are winning games by 15 points per 100 possessions. You are winning by 15 per 100 possessions. That's ridiculous without an all-NBA player who's about to still enter the mix more fully and like completely.
Yeah.
Like AJ Mitchell has been tremendous. He is their like second scorer or third scorer, really, beyond SHAI and Chet.
Yep.
Aaron Wiggins and like Isaiah Joe come in and, they put up points. Like the way that they manufacture offense beyond SHAI is incredibly impressive to me. And look, these guys are all like the players are all really good. I don't want to sit here and say it's all Dagnall. The players are all awesome and they do an amazing job developmentally. But the way that Dagnall puts them in position to succeed every time when they enter the court, sometimes with differing roles on a night-to-night basis, and keeps them ready to go every single time, I couldn't get past it. I have Dagnall as Coach of the Year. They're 21-1 despite being like this injured throughout the course of the year.
I think my thing with that is, and this is the hardest thing. Sometimes coach of the year is the hardest one. Like we can see X and O's and schemes, but I think a huge part of coaching, especially at the professional level, is just managing egos and players and playing time and all of those things. And we can see some of that, but unless you're there day in and day out, it's really hard to just really judge the culture that a coach brings to a team. It just seems like from the outside that Dagnall has done an incredible job of that with managing all of these dudes that are NBA players that he's having to find time for and decide when they play, when they don't, what the rotations are, all of that. It's, yes, he has a lot of talent there, but he's playing that talent perfectly to where they have been absolutely dominant. And I will say that's why I'm so impressed by JB as well. It's not necessarily his X and O's by any mean. It's the culture I've seen him create in Detroit after a horrendous, historically bad season. And that's why I do hold him in such high regard, even though I fully understand why Dagnall would be People's Coach of the Year.
Fun fact, who is older, Chris Paul or Mark Dagnall?
So Dagnall's 40 yet? No?
I'm asking you the question.
I'll say Chris Paul.
It's Dagnall by 3 months. Dagnall is older than Chris Paul by 3 months. But yeah, I mean, look, Dagnall is already this successful at like having just turned 40 this year. Man, I mean, this is the start to a career.
Yeah, right?
This is the start. This is like the way the Hall of Fame coaches start.
I wanted to shout out Darko. I think has done a great job in Toronto.
I have Darko third for what it's worth.
Same. And then I had Spoelstra just because of being one of the best, if not the best coach in the NBA and the offensive adjustment. And then 3 quick ones, Mitch Johnson, Jordan Ott, Joe Mazzulla, like all coaching teams to better records than I think I would have guessed. Mitch Johnson specifically because he's had to coach so many games without Victor and of course without Steph Castle as well. And De'Aaron Fox to start the year.
De'Aaron Fox. Yeah. I went Darko because of the defensive improvement. I've always had some questions about Darko defensively and the way that they have really embraced playing this like crazy up tempo. I know that they like got aggressive defensively last year, but like the way they have like gotten really aggressive in the way that they play at the point of attack, I've been so impressed. Really just an awesome coach so far this season for Toronto. I Jordan Ott fourth. The way that he's been able to really elevate Phoenix has been incredible as well to me. Okay. Again, I'm saving defense for last. 6th man of the year.
I went AJ Mitchell.
I have AJ Mitchell as well. I thought this was like kind of an easy choice for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible. We've talked about him a bunch, throughout this year. If I would have done second year players, there's probably an argument there for most improved and all of that, but he's been so good for them. 14 points on 45. I am interested to see where the 3-point percentage lands. It's down below 30% now at time of recording. And, I brought that up recently. He holds.
I don't think that's right, Bryce.
Oh, that's just in his bench games. I apologize. So but then he holds his own defensively as well. I mean, he's not like one of their all defense level guys, but he's strong enough to hold up at the point of attack and he can be a little bit disruptive. He just fits what they do so perfectly, able to pressure the paint and do it in creative ways. I just think he's been the most impactful, bench guy for his team.
15, 4-4, shooting 47, 34, 87, getting to the line 4 times a game. Like he's 3.5x that this year compared to where he was last year. Really, to me, the most important bench player in the league to start the year, because again, they were without J-Dub. They desperately needed a secondary ball handler, and he's been able to take on that load of being the secondary ball handler and still carrying them to a 21-1 record along with Shai and Chet and everybody else, Dagnall, everyone who's been amazing along with the defense. Who did you have at 2?
I actually had Jaime Jaquez at 2.
I also have Jaime Jaquez at 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about him as well in terms of like nobody has embraced a new offensive scheme better than Jaime Jaquez. The 3-point shooting isn't there, but this offensive system kind of allows him to do what he does best though, and not need to do that necessarily over 50% from the field, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Sorry, these are all his bench scoring numbers, so they may not match up exactly with what Sam
he's
has.
only come off the bench this year, so it's
okay.
It's
so those are all right, but yeah, I just think he's been really good for them, and again, I think he's a perfect fit for that scheme, and that's a huge part of this success. But the game I watched him play Detroit without him, I thought it was noticeable that they needed kind of his
100%.
downhill force.
Yeah, that is 100% right. We talked about that last week. Like without him on the bench unit, that bench unit just like completely crumbles offensively. And to me, it's not just like the scoring, it's also the passing. Like he's averaging those 5 assists per game. He's so embraced the quick movement, the ability to like get that ball rolling across the perimeter on the fly. His drive and kick out game has been really, really essential. And on top of it, he's just like a real isolation scorer in a scheme that works perfectly for that. Who do you have at 3?
I had Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, fair answer. I've Reed, but like
Reed's number 4 for me. I mean, I could go back and forth either way. I think, Grimes is averaging 17 points a game on the season, 37% from 3. I think, we talked about Maxey earlier and kind of everything he's having to work with. One mainstay for him, I feel like, has been Grimes doing what he does as an off the ball guard wing while still being able to do a little bit on the ball as well. But I had Reed right there after Grimes.
Yeah, Reed Shepherd, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.7 steals on 48, 45, 71. He is shooting 48, 45, which is just bonkers. The last few games haven't been monstrous, but weirdly he has stepped up in the big games. Like obviously he did start that game against Golden State, but 31, 9 and 5, it was just a monster in that game against Golden State. I went Reed, I had Grimes 4th. Totally reasonable to go any of those guys. Okay. Now comes like the throwdown for the next 10 minutes where we talk about defensive player of the year and all defense guys. So, okay. Who did you have as your defensive player of the year?
I would imagine
that this one. Okay. You went Chet.
I went Chet. Just because, listen, like we've talked about the Oklahoma City Thunder a lot. And I mean, to me, it almost has to be a Thunder player. I'm interested to see where you go. Is it a Thunder player?
It's not, but
okay.
I went with Victor because he's still eligible.
Oh, I don't have Victor as eligible.
Okay. If you don't have Victor as eligible, I think Chet's completely reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't say this at the top, but I put a 16 game cap on all of my names.
Great. Awesome.
Like across the, even with this all NBA. So like any other name that people are like, hey, why didn't they bring up or whatever? That's where like Lou Dort actually isn't on my list either because of this. So like whether people want to like that or not, like that is ultimately what I ended up going here. So
you know what? I'm good with that because that is like a good 65 game barometer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty fine with that.
I thought we were too early in the year to be like projecting out, like, are they going to be able to do it in general or not? Or what? So I just said, did they play 16 games or not? If they did, then like Luka barely made it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then, anything below that. So I did not have Victor. I have Chet just because, like I said, best defense in the NBA. It's not even close. We will talk about other Thunder's defenders along with him, but I think his combination of rim protection along with providing some like switchability and versatility as well. And then even a guy, like we'll get to some of the other guys. I went with Chet. I don't want to put anybody else down until we get to him. So,
okay. So I struggled to separate the Thunder guys quite a bit.
Sure.
To be honest.
It's fair.
And you will see that whenever we do, the all defense stuff that I have a lot of Thunder guys. I personally went with Bam here.
Okay.
And I think Bam has been a monster in terms of being able to run like versatile defenses for them. They run zone at time to time. He's been a monster on the ball defensively for them. I just love the way that he's able to like completely operate and change and do different things on a night-to-night basis for what has been the number 3 defense in the league, holding teams to a 51 effective field goal percentage, which is second worst in the league. the defensive rebounding has not been great. If you want to make a case to ding Bam for that, fair enough, I guess. Like, I'm for it. But he does so much defending away from the rim as well that, he's just in rebounding position less than some of these other, elite defensive rebounders are, frankly. He is so good at being able to switch onto wings, onto guards. He is so good at being able to blitz. He is so good at being able to play in drop now. Like, that was always kind of a weakness for me, is that he was never great in drop, but I think he's been better at it recently. He can play the 4 defensively next to Kel'el Ware. He can play the 5. Like, the fact that he is as versatile as he is a huge reason why their defense is still sitting at number 3, despite the fact that they play at the 3rd fastest pace in the league, which theoretically should lead to more transition possessions for the other team. And it's still just like not mattering. Like, they're still getting stops on the defensive end. And to me, it's mostly because of what Bam's able to do.
No, that's a fair point with the pace and how much, how tough that of a situation that puts him in. He's definitely first team all defense for me. So, like, I want to be clear here. I just was not able to go to somebody that wasn't on the Thunder. Like, and here's the thing is that may be wrong to like make it a team reward for defensive player of the year and then also reward them with multiple players between 2 teams, which I am also going to do. But I think Chet is good enough individually still to still warrant that. I think one number that did kind of sway me a little bit was looking at Bam's via synergy, looking at Bam's rim defensive numbers weren't as close or weren't as good as like Chet and Hartenstein and even Isaiah Stewart and Evan Mobley. And that was a little bit off-putting. And again, sometimes I have recency bias with this. I saw Detroit kind of eat Miami up in the lane where I didn't think Bam was super effective defending the paint, but maybe he's asked to do so much away from the rim. That's not like, that's more of a Khalil Ware thing than it is a Bam Adebayo thing.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. Like, I don't really have a problem with that case either. We're so few games into the year.
No,
like,
for sure.
I'm not going to sit here and argue with a lot of it.
That's hard. I mean, and that's a difficult part of it at times as well, this early in the year. Like, this is why I said at the top, Sam, I think this is harder than what it'll be at the end of the year, because it's like, okay, do I believe this 20 game sample? You still have stuff from last year there. You can't help but let projection float into your head a little bit. And that's why I had a hard time with just doing it I think this is the hardest one, is my point.
Okay. So second, I had Draymond.
Okay.
The Warriors are giving up 107 points per 100 possessions when Draymond is on the court. And when he's off the court, they give up 117.5 points per 100 possessions. And like, I get that we don't like to just use that as like a catch-all number for single individual defenders. But in Draymond's case, I think it is relevant because he is captaining literally every single thing that's happening out there on defense. Like, if you watch that dude communicate, if you watch him across the board, the way he flies around in help whenever one of his guys get beat, the way that he is like making sure that everyone is in alignment, the way he's talking to his teammates constantly, the way he's making them aware of screens, the way that like he is the defense for them. He, like, in very similar ways to the way that Stephen Curry is the scheme on offense, and then Jimmy Butler is kind of the bailout a lot of the time. Draymond Green is the scheme on defense. Like, it does not work without him. It falls apart entirely without him. And they still have a top 10 defense, despite the fact that, they're playing guys like Jonathan Kuminga and other guys that they very clearly do not trust on the defensive end. Like, Buddy Hield and, Al Horford has not been good, in my opinion. And they're still sitting here with like Will Richard playing as a rookie and they're top 10 in defense. And that's all Draymond. And when Draymond's out there, they have the second best defensive rating in the league. Like, it's pretty wild how good they've been on that end and how good he has been on that end.
Also have him on my first team all defense. I actually went with your guy still, even though I don't think he's been as good this year. And that's probably why I didn't have him as like my number one. But the Houston Rockets are still second in defensive rating. And I still think he's insanely good on the defensive end. I don't know that he's as impactful. And I think some of that maybe.
You're talking about Amen Thompson.
Amen Thompson. Yeah, I guess I should say his name at some point. He's being asked to do more offensively, but I still think that, like, if you ask me, and I guess this is probably to your point, like Amen would be a guy, like, if you I got to go get a stop, who would you want to put on the point of attack on the perimeter? Amen still might be my answer. Like, if you wanted me to go ahead. If you want me to
go ahead.
Captain a defense, it's probably Draymond, right? If you want the versatility of all of it, maybe it's Bam, Chet, doing what but if it's just like, hey, I need you to go stop SHAI, I don't know that Amen still isn't my answer because of the athleticism, the ability to play with his chest, the all of it. I still think he's really, really good. And again, I think I lean into overall defensive rating for some of this, and they're the second best defense in the NBA, and he's the best defender on that team.
So I had Chet third.
Okay.
I had Amen fourth.
Okay.
And I had Barnes fifth. So now we're getting into like all defense, right?
Love
and
it.
we've talked a little bit about Scotty Barnes in the all NBA stuff. His ability to play as the free roaming defender kind of across the map on defense is insane. Like, he's just truly, he's not like a one of one or anything, but his anticipation on that end, his willingness to go out and block shots, he is a monster. He is so, so good on the defensive end. Second team all defense. I have Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yep.
I have Cason Wallace.
Yep.
I have Asar Thompson.
Yep.
I have Jalen Suggs.
Okay.
And then my last spot came down to either Mobley or Castle. And I wasn't sure what to do.
Okay. So I had Asar on first team. Just again, I kind of leaned into, defensive rating stuff, and he's the best defender on the Pistons. And so that's where I went with that. My second team was Hartenstein, Mobley, Barnes, Wallace, and Suggs. Castle didn't play enough games for me. I think that's right.
Yeah. I thought he was at 17. Am I wrong?
Maybe I'm right. 13.
Oh, if he's only at 13, then we can just remove him, and that's fine. So yeah, that actually makes life way easier. I thought he was at 17.
So I was interested if you would have Cason, because I've loved his defense this year.
Yeah.
And then my next three names, like I think Dyson Daniels, Isaiah Stewart, I think Dylan Brooks, because that Phoenix defense is top 10 in the NBA. But yeah.
Yeah, Brooks was a name I considered for sure. But ultimately, like, I felt like I needed to get 3 Thunder guys. This defense is historic. And what Isaiah Hartenstein does for them is so underrated. Like, the way he's able to just be that solid, steady presence on the interior. He's so sharp in ball screen coverages. He's so good in drop. He moves his feet incredibly well. Ends possessions as a rebounder. He's been awesome. And Suggs has been amazing on the defensive end. Like, he's like fully back to being I am flying around everywhere. There's like nothing you can do to like stop me from rotating and like creating all this crazy havoc, and then creating an immense number of transition plays as well on that end too. Like, he has been so, so good on the defensive end. I don't know if we need to talk about Mobley. Mobley's just awesome on defense. Like, that just is what it is.
For me, like, it was all the guys, like the bigger players, Chet, Bam, Draymond, Hart, Mobley, Barnes, even the Thompson twins. Then it was like, to me, it was 3 guys for 2 spots with Dyson, Cason, and Jalen Suggs. And I really, really struggled with those 3 guys in terms of like which 2 out of the 3. And I think ultimately, like, because Atlanta's a top 10 defensive rating team as well.
Yeah.
And, Dyson leads the NBA in deflections, but Cason Wallace is third. He's like not that far behind. Dyson's like just overall disruption so far hasn't quite as been to the level that we saw last year. Cason is, I don't think even in just straight steal numbers is that far behind him, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Dyson is only 0.1 above Cason Wallace. So,
yeah. So I just think Cason is a lot more solid, like on a possession by possession basis, like especially, guarding on the ball. He's just a menace guarding on the ball. Like, it's really hard to go through his chest in a way that Dyson, I think, sometimes can get just like that little hair out of position and end up like giving up a drive in a way that Kaysen doesn't always give up. Asar, do you want to talk at all about Asar on defense? Because you had him first team.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he is definitely the anchor of that team. Well, I shouldn't say the anchor. Stu's probably what you would consider the anchor, but Asar he plays more minutes than Stewart plays, but he just takes those matchups on the perimeter that nobody else can, and he is very disruptive. Again, on Wednesday night, I think it was 3 or 4 possessions early in the game, just completely disrupts what Milwaukee was trying to do. He is not as solid as a min, and that's why I could see maybe him being on second team. I'm probably giving a little bit of a nod to how good Detroit has been as a team on the defensive end, and that's why I had him on first team. He's still got to figure out the foul trouble at times and all of that, but playing 28 minutes a night this year, his impact on that end has really shown, and I think he's more disruptive than the 2.3 stocks per game would lead you to believe.
14 games for Isaiah Stewart over 20 minutes. So, I just kind of removed him, unfortunately, because the rules are stupid and it is what it is. Yeah. Okay. So just real quick, I want to recap all defense because we kind of went helter-skelter there at the end. Bam Adebayo, Draymond, Chet, Barnes, all first team, all defense for both of us.
I had Barnes second team. My first team was Chet, Amin, Asar, Bam, and Draymond. So I actually had Scotty second team.
Okay. So I had Bam, Draymond, Chet, Barnes, and I guess Amin first team. And then I had Kaysen, Asar, Suggs, Mobley. And then I'm missing Kaysen, Asar, Suggs, Mobley, and Hartenstein.
Yeah,
is the other one I had. So, I don't know. I keep going back and forth between Amin and Barnes. Honestly, that's kind of my issue with this. Okay. Like, I'm not 100% sure which one to go with. Okay. Before we get out of here, we do got to shout out one of our good friends here at Momentous. Let's get that ad up on the screen real quick for the people. Shout out to our friends over at Momentous. Creatine isn't just for building muscle, it has become a daily essential for your strength, focus, recovery, aging, and cognitive performance. And now Momentous is making your daily creatine routine, not creatine routine, even easier with new creatine chews. These bite-sized lemon lime chews make consistency effortless. You just chew and you go. Momentous spent years testing this until they created the first chewable that actually meets the Momentous standard, which is uncompromising science, meticulous sourcing, and real transparency. No artificial sweeteners, no fillers, just science-backed, clinically proven performance in a portable, craveable format. Momentous does not follow trends. They perfect the fundamentals. This is chewable creatine done right. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off your first order with promo code GAME. That's go to livemomentous.com, livemomentous.com. Use that promo code GAME for up to 35% off your first order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code GAME. We're going to shout out the Substack too real quick before we get out of here. Game Theory, samv.substack.com. I will have a Hannes Steinbach breakdown going up later, probably before this goes up, to be honest with you. I'm going to do it on Thursday night here because it's Washington and there will be enough time for the people to see it. And then I've done Braylon Mullins recently. Bryce did Jalen Johnson earlier this week. I did a couple other ones earlier this week. Just go to the Substack. It's a great place. You will see so many different things up there that are awesome film breakdowns. It's $6 a month. It's the best way to support the show. And I promise you, you absolutely get your money's worth with that thing. There's no question about that. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. Got Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, obviously the Game Theory Substack. Probably won't see much from me until later into next week. My family and I are headed to Kansas City to see my best friend from high school and his family. Check out a very cold Chiefs game. We'll be on the road, all of that. So you will not hear me You get a break from me for a couple days on the Game Theory podcast. I'm sure the guests that Sam has lined up will do a great job. I'll be back essentially a week from now, and then we'll start getting back into the Substack on Game Theory as well. And Pistons Pulse podcast, otherwise right here, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I have a mock draft up that went up on Thursday. I do not have Cam Boozer at number 5 on that mock draft, which is one of the craziest things I've seen someone do in a long time, to be honest with you, in a mock draft. I've not talked to a single NBA executive who has Cam Boozer outside of the top 4. I've heard 4 from a couple. If you wanted to have Caleb Wilson ahead, like, I'm not going to quibble too much with that, but I mean, I would personally, but yeah, I do not have, I've not heard from anybody that has Cam Boozer at 5. That's a new one for me. Go over to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. That'll be fun. Yeah, that's all we got for today's show. We appreciate all of you immensely for coming to hang out and rocking with the show. We will be back on Sunday with somebody. I'm not sure who yet, but until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.